What's poppin'? We got the house history class, man. Happy Corona break to y'all.
You know what it is. Go ahead, like and subscribe to the channel. This is where you finna learn about the history. You feel me? Tune in.
Straight like that.
What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to talk to you about your second packet for this unit. It's going to be the Roaring 20s. Quick update, make sure that you're turning in your first packet if you have completed it. And I will go ahead and put a grade in that grade book for you. So the Roaring 20s, this is a huge time in America. This is the flapper generation. This is the Great Gatsby generation, if you will. Things are going really well in the United States at this time. People have a lot more money. People are buying a lot more stuff. People are doing a lot more hobbies. They're going to movies. They're going to plays. They're driving nice cars. If you've seen Great Gatsby, this is it. Credit is big during this. The stock market is big during this. And why you may ask why? Why is it like this? Well, I'll go ahead and tell you. If you're in a wartime economy, you make a lot of money. So we just came off World War I. So everyone has a lot of money because the economy is doing this. It's going really good. When you're talking about the Roaring 20s, you got to talk about someone by the name of Henry Ford. Henry Ford, just like Ford vehicles or the F-150 or whatever, he is the guy at this time. So Henry Ford is going to be responsible for making the automobile called the Model T. He makes it like the most accessible automobile to anybody in the world, meaning, or I guess in the United States, meaning he wants everybody to have one, which is smart. He's responsible for a lot of stuff. A lot of people don't really know a whole lot about Henry Ford. You're talking about the guy who is giving better wages, which is smart because he is thinking, okay, well, if I pay a little more, guess what? The work's probably going to be a little better. You're talking about the guy who is responsible for helping create weekends. We're saying, well, you know what? I figured out if I give my employees Saturday and Sunday off, Monday through Friday ain't so bad. And then you can talk about the guy that's also responsible for the idea of the 8-hour workday. This guy's saying, okay, you know what? If we can work them less, then the product will be better. He's also known for the assembly line. So when you hear Henry Ford, you need to go ahead and connect two things. Number one, Model T. Number two, you need to connect the assembly line, because without the assembly line, there's no possible way that he would be able to make the Model T as much as he did. So quick little story about assembly lines. For those of you that do not know what assembly line is when you have each worker at a different station. So for example, let's say we're building cars just like Henry Ford was. If I'm at the assembly line that is dealing with tires, all I deal with is tires. You went from this process where you're making one car and everybody's working on that one car to where, this is a key term, specialization. People are specializing in their craft, meaning I'm the tire guy. So when the car comes to me, I take the tire, I put it on with little nuts and bolts, boom, it goes to the next little station. I don't worry about anything else. I'm not worried about putting the doors on. I'm not worried about painting it. I'm not worried about the carburetor. I'm not worried about anything. So the idea is I'm going to get, if I'm doing this for 8 hours a day, I'm going to get pretty good at putting tires on. Meaning the production process goes faster. So by the time it gets to me, I'm tire on, send it. Tire on, send it. So it's a lot easier to produce things at a more rapid pace because I'm more efficient at my job, right? And I probably enjoy being there more because I get paid more. So that's kudos to him. So with this, you're going to have the consumer revolution. You're like, well, what does that mean? People buy more stuff. They're buying more stuff because, number one, they have money. Number two, they got this thing called credit. Credit's good until you're on the bad side of credit. Credit, for those of you that don't know, like a credit card that you swipe, that means you are borrowing money from somebody. So if you have an American Express credit card, when you swipe it and you buy that new TV for $400 or whatever, American Express is essentially loaning you $400. Where people get hurt is you don't pay it. So they're going to come knocking, hey, you know, your payment's due for this credit card. Well, I don't have it. Well, guess what? You're going to get taxed with a fee. And if you don't pay it after a certain amount of time, guess what they come do? They come take your stuff. So this is going to be like the climb of the economy in the 1920s, but we're going to talk about something that leads to the Great Depression. We'll talk about that in our next couple little videos. But consumer revolution, people are buying more stuff. You're like, what are they buying? Well, they're buying radios, they're buying cars, they're buying tickets to events such as baseball or movies or whatever, America's pastime. They're spending money. When you spend money, the economy is solid. Radios are important. They have this broadcast of daily news, right? A lot of you may think, well, you know, what does it matter for a radio? Well, guess what? TVs are not popping right then. So what's going to happen is The radio is like their TV. The president can speak to you. Everybody can speak to you. You listen to it at night. Just like some of you watch certain TV shows, not necessarily this generation because you all watch Netflix, but for example, Game of Thrones, it was coming on every Sunday at 9. So everybody would get around and you would watch Game of Thrones at 9 and the next day you would talk about it. It's like that, but it's via radio. So people are sitting down, they're listening to these stories, they're listening to these radio personalities coming on, and then they talk about it. It gives them a pastime. Baseball games are broadcasted on there. Advertisements are broadcasted on there, advertising new goods, the newest, greatest thing that's out there right now that they want you to buy. This is all part of the consumer revolution. We're going to talk about the cultural effects of World War I. So you're going to have this thing of the temperance movement coming back. Remember, who do you think's sparking it? Yeah, that's correct, the women. Because, why? They're saying, well, their men are drinking too much and it's causing uprisings in the home. Shocking. So what they're going to do is they're going to push for this banning of alcohol. All right, and that's a temperance movement. You're going to have like the Anti-Saloon League, you're going to have the Women's Christian Temperance Movement, and they all want alcohol banned. So this leads me, drum roll please, to some amendments that you need to know. First one, the 16th Amendment. Tip. Way for you to remember that. You usually get your first job around 16, or you're able to get your first job around 16. So why does it matter? Because they have this thing called income tax. You're like, what is that? I'm going to say, well, that's a little thing that when you get your paycheck, it says you've made this many dollars. And then you say, but you're getting this much. And you're like, what? How am I getting this much? How am I getting $300 when it said I made 500 and some? It's not that much, but I'm being exaggerating. But you're like, how is that possible? And you go, well, you got income tax, you got federal tax, you got all this stuff. And the idea is the government is going to start taking some of your money. Why? Because they're smart. The Americans are making a lot of money. The idea is the government gets more money, they can do more stuff. Not necessarily though, because at this time period, the government is not looking to help you. They have a laissez-faire approach, meaning they're hands off, meaning if there's a problem in the public, guess what? Yeah, they don't care because it's not the government's job to handle the things going on in the public, which becomes a problem when you're talking about the Great Depression, right? Because that's going to affect everybody. Now, the other thing is you're going to have the 18th Amendment. 18th Amendment is going to be a prohibition of alcohol. And you're like, well, how can I remember that? Because a lot of the arguments is when you're 18 years old, you can sign up to go to the military. Or when you're 18 years old, actually, if you want to vote, you have to sign your active military card, right? So when I turned 18, got this little card in the mail, and they're like, hey, you need to sign this and say that you are an active participant in the United States Army. And I'm like, why would I sign this? I don't want to be in the Army. And my dad goes, you want to vote? And I go, yep. And he goes, sign the paper. Because if you can't sign the paper, you can't vote. If you can't sign the paper, you're going to have restrictions on your driver's license or the ability to get one. So you're going to sign this paper. Is that, I guess, an infraction of your constitutional right? I don't know. Later video. But, so what's going to happen is you're going to have the banning of alcohol. And the way I remember that again is you can sign up for the military. A lot of people are going to complain, well, how come I can serve the United States but I can't come home and have a beer? So what's going to happen is the 18th Amendment is going to happen, but it's going to have some backlash to it. They're not really prepared. Number one, they're not prepared with the correct police enforcement. You're like, why does that matter? Because people are going to still want liquor, and they're going to still want booze, and they're going to still want beer and that kind of stuff. So guess what? They're going to get it. This is like the rise of bootlegging. The gangsters started to come out. The police force is not there to help it. And the rise of organized crime is because of prohibition. So that is the main thing there. And again, this bans production, transportation, and sale of alcohol, meaning you can't be around it at all. Speakeasy are gonna pop. If you don't know what a speakeasy is like this really old school like bar that you'd have to like enter a code, like so many knocks and like a couple code words to get into, and that's where you can go and drink and have fun, have like a night social life during the 20s. But the other thing that's going to happen during this time period is you're going to have women's suffrage. The 19th Amendment is going to be responsible for the passage of giving the women the ability to vote. You can remember that because this happened in 1919, going into the 1920 year. So 1919, 19th Amendment, women's suffrage. And women are going to be responsible also when you're talking about the, just their overall social appearance and their social status. Why? Well, because in World War I, same thing's going to happen in World War II. When these men go off to war, guess what? Well, these factories need to be filled. There's jobs that need to be filled. All of a sudden, this idea that a woman has to stay in the home and it can't work, guess what? That goes out the window as she goes home or she goes out to help the United States in this wartime economy. So women are going to start to say, you know what? I help with the war effort. I can do this. I don't just have to stay at home. I can work an actual job. That's the first one. The second one is going to be your temperance movement. So with the temperance movement, you're going to have a lot of women, again, they're reaching out and they're wanting this ban of alcohol and they're wanting this to be suppressed so that they can help fix their homes. And the third one, they're going to have anti-labor laws and they're going to push for those. And you're like, what does that mean? Well, we're talking about child labor. So the idea that children should probably not be able to work, right? If you're 10 years old, you should not be in an ammunition factory for World War I or a factory at all or working at all, because guess what? You're 10 years old. So they have these child labor laws because, again, think about it. Why were businesses hiring children? Well, number one, they're cheap, right? If you give a child $5, they're going to be ecstatic, right? If you're 10 years old and they're $5, that's $5 more than what they had. You can buy a lot of stuff with that. Same thing if you give a kid a $20 bill, they're going to do a lot of things for you. Meaning, if you want that yard cut, they're going to cut the yard for $20. It could be worth more than that, but to them, $20 are thinking, hey, this is a steal, because they don't have a job. So $20 is a lot for them. So these companies are able to hire these children for cheap, and they're hired to work long hours, so you don't have to pay them. So the company's making more money. The last thing I'm going to talk about is this idea of the Jazz Age and the idea of the Harlem Renaissance. So we talked about the Great Migration and these African Americans moving up north to these cities, and these cities are really going to start to flourish. And I'm going to talk about the Harlem Renaissance too, which really is a rebirth of African American culture and expression. And you're going to have jazz is going to be a big part of this. Jazz is known as the first original American music ever made, and it's going to be a major part. And the Harlem Renaissance plays with the Jazz Age. Louis Armstrong is going to be famous for the Jazz Age, and he's a famous musician. And you're going to have all these things that are playing into the nightlife and stuff like that. So again, the Harlem Renaissance, this is a rebirth in African American culture. This happens in Harlem, New York. And this brings African American culture into the white culture, or the white American culture, right? So it changes how African Americans see themselves, not only from person to person, but how they see themselves fitting in the United States at this time. That's the Roaring 20s. So if you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. Any comments, any thing you need to be doing, make sure you're doing USA test prep. Make sure you're doing all your extra little assignments and reading. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for watching History with House.
Don't forget to
like,
comment,
and subscribe.